Hello, this is Sharama here. We're a YouTube channel that informs you about Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and all the related projects. As you already know, Bitcoin is ready to make a big move, so let's get started into this video. As you already know, Bitcoin has been rising for the last couple of years, and since it has really taken off, as you can see, Bitcoin has been doing quite well in the market, even though because of inflation and markets, there is still rise for Bitcoin to grow. So as we can see, Bitcoin used to be around $69,000, and then it dropped to at least $40,000, and then it rebounded to $42,000. As we can see, Bitcoin actually dropped 40% down, but still it is been risen, even though it used to be $40,000. Now currently it is $42,000, and there's still potential. Some analysts said that Bitcoin will grow for around 69,000. So we will see how Bitcoin does, but it really depends on investor, and it is being pushed because Bitcoin is not really centralized. It is a decentralized, which means that no government on earth actually control it. It is just the market. So some analysts say that it has both its pros and cons. So we will see how Bitcoin does, and Bitcoin really has potential to grow. And because of inflation, as well enough, basic goods are risen, and Bitcoin is actually at the center in cryptocurrency and other things. So we will see that Bitcoin has been really doing pretty well in the market, even though Bitcoin has been driven down. And then there's still potential for Bitcoin to grow. As we know, Bitcoin has been really getting international news. For example, El Salvador actually adopted Bitcoin as a currency to use digital, and there's still potential for Bitcoin to use. It cannot be centralized, and it can be kind of tough for Bitcoin to be actually monopolized on, but it will depend, and the market for it is quite favorably because people want to get on the cryptocurrency, as we already know, and it is actually playing a major role because it is a new thing. It is like in the 21st century, like it has a dynamic like the internet, but much more, and there's some opportunities. Some people are investing in Bitcoin, and some people are still skeptical about it, but there's still both people on both spectrum, so we will see. And Bitcoin, as you already know, has been driven really high. It is currently around 44,030 cents, but it is still being grew, even though it go down sometime and up. We will see how Bitcoin does. As you already know, Bitcoin, which has really risen, is really doing great. But then there's something. So for example, such as the company and retail industry actually pushing Bitcoin because the pandemic has really hitting them really hard, and because of the pandemic, Bitcoin has been really really bad, but there's still potential, and retail and businesses want to push Bitcoin, and there's still potential for them. Bitcoin miner has potential, and so Bitcoin miner are really critical. So if you don't know what's a Bitcoin miner, so let me give a depth. So Bitcoin miner are actually the people who are setting up like the infrastructure for us to use, because for example, think of the Bitcoin miner has like the available company that build the array for like people to travel, so they're building like the infrastructure for us to use. So Bitcoin miner play a critical role in us acquiring Bitcoin, and because of this, they play a critical role. And then there's both good and Bitcoin both has good like a pros and cons to it, but we'll see how it does. So Bitcoin miner actually the people who set up the computers, all the things, factories and stuff like that, and even though it takes a lot of energy, so Bitcoin miner play a critical role, but they have been really affected in a bad way since the pandemic last year and the high price and the rising inflation. As you already know, prices are getting really high. For example, you already heard about the gas price, the attack, and there have been some issue with it. But Bitcoin miner has been hit really hard, even though their network actually been really hit in a bad way. There's still potential. Like since starting this year, Bitcoin miner has made some. They didn't do that great, but because of that, it kind of affect their expenses, and it is really expensive to run like a Bitcoin miner thing. So they want to monopolize Bitcoin. So some people think monopolizing Bitcoin is actually both like good and bad. So we will really see how Bitcoin does. Because of that, like they're really thinking about Bitcoin being really good and bad. So some people think that like marketing and monetizing Bitcoin is not good. So tell me what you think. Arkansas, as you already know, is actually a beautiful state with diversity, and there's a lot of food, and there's a lot of things to discover. So the state of Arkansas is actually getting a lot of international news because they're actually offering people $10,000 in Bitcoin, which is actually unusual and actually shocking. So it has been getting a lot of international news. And then they're offering $10,000 in Bitcoin and backed for people to relocate. So I guess this is actually like a new thing. We see how Bitcoin is actually changing and how states are implemented it. So states are offering like money and other things so people can relocate because there is an opportunities. This opportunities is like Bitcoin can be made into an economy, even though there's a long way to go. So Bitcoin is actually serving as like a gateway to an economy, and because of that, so what the state of Arkansas is actually doing is actually offering opportunities and to attract talent, because if you attract talent, you can actually develop your economy, or you can make it more dynamic, which can be like critical, because on the international stage, only like the best actually succeed. So you have to have a lot of talent, and people who work really hard, and talent actually play a critical role. So recruiting talented and people can actually diverse their economy and make it more, because Bitcoin is actually transferring economy, and it will become it. So every day you will keep hearing about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and you will hear about it. So Bitcoin will really be part of the 21st century, and a lot of countries around the world will actually do Bitcoin and actually do it. So for example, the state of Florida, like not the state of Florida, but El Salvador is actually making Bitcoin as a currency, which is actually shocking, because if you actually see like Salvador actually saying that they want to give people the abilities to actually pay in Bitcoin, which is actually like groundbreaking and is making actually headway. So this is like a both good opportunities, because Bitcoin is not really centralized, which is good, because sometimes there is some problem, and there is some problem with the currency of a different country, but Bitcoin can actually make it centralized, not like centralized like a government, but centralized like one currency, and people can actually use that and to make business. So the state of Arkansas is actually making a big, people actually do Bitcoin, actually have like digital wallet, which they can make purchase about Bitcoin, but it's actually kind of actually, I mean, it's not bad. It's just that sometimes a lot of people are getting tricked and they're getting scammed a lot of money, and this has been really bad because a lot of people are taking advantage of it, like scamming people, and this can be really bad. Like having a centralized, for example, a fund can be good because the vast majority of people can get in, and it can be like safe. And I'm not saying that having not like a digital wallet is actually not bad. It's just that like at least having somewhere, if you want it to be like more safe, put it somewhere you trust, like a hedge fund you trust, so you can actually put your Bitcoin actually safe. So saving, like putting a fund is actually good. So there's been a lot of talk about fund actually doing Bitcoin in it, but it has not really materialized yet, but we'll see. Some has always started it, but we'll see. So having a fund is actually pretty good. So the thing about scam, so scammer are actually taking opportunities, because I see people who, for example, there's people who know how to invest, and there are some people who just invest because they're following, like they're following everyone, like they're following the whole herd. So it's actually not good, because if you keep following the herd, some people will try to take advantage of people who don't know how to invest and stuff like that, and then because of that they're getting scammed like 1,000 out of their money, like 50,000 to 1,000,000, but sometimes it can go up to 20 million or even more. But it really depends. So you need to be careful out there. So tell me what you think about like scam and stuff like that. So scamming is actually not really good, even though some government are trying to like make sure that it's secure, because it is not really centralized. It is actually like more like accounts, but it is still debatable by some people. So we will see. Having a fund is actually pretty good. And then number two, you need to make sure that you need like pay attention to scammer and stuff like that, because if you pay attention to scammer, it actually help you and not fall for them. And then you need to like know how to do. You need to have a little bit of research about Bitcoin, because of so many scams going out there. So you need to be careful. And then another thing is that a fund is actually pretty good. You really know inflation and Bitcoin are actually going together, because inflation kind of actually makes Bitcoin go up and down, but really it's kind of like a factor. So let's talk about inflation. As you already know, the prices are really high, and the basic goods are keep rising because of too many money being printed out by the government. So inflation is really rampant. the so inflation actually is getting better. I mean, not that great, but it's actually getting better. So inflation has been not really great, and because of the rising costs and people hacking and gases keep rising. Like one time when people actually go out, people were trying to buy gases. It was actually impossible. Like you had to line up, and sometimes like because of the hacking and inflation, some actually gas pump actually you couldn't even find gas, so you had to wait. So it was really bad, and it affected like the government in a negative way. So inflation actually impact Bitcoin because of if prices keep rising, it will be kind of actually tough for people to actually invest in Bitcoin, which kind of actually make it go down. And then if it go down, it will actually in fact, so a lot of people will make it go down. And if it actually go down, it will actually be bad. So inflation actually play out. So some analysts actually said that inflation. So some analysts say that inflation actually will be going down and Bitcoin will keep rising because like since it is actually 42,000, like 44,000 right now, it is actually going to go up. It is because it's actually at the defining range, and so Bitcoin could be risen to 69,000 or even more, and even surpass what was estimated. So some analysts say that Bitcoin will actually grow to 100,000 and even more. So those doing some which actually help you. So Bitcoin will really help. So this is how it goes. So Bitcoin has the potential to actually surpass and actually get the 100,000 and even more. Government is another thing because some government are actually afraid of Bitcoin because it is actually not centralized. Even though it is being pushed by the market, some people take advantage and it can really affect their financial and economic. So if some states are affected by Bitcoin, it can actually have detrimental and big impact on the goods and basic goods, and it will lead to armies and a lot of things. So some government don't like Bitcoin, and so Bitcoin is actually approved by some country and some don't. For example, which I'm not gonna state. So Bitcoin is actually really good for the market, but for some government it's actually not good. But it is like a 21st century tools which can be used by a lot of the masses, and some actually don't like that. So the government don't like Bitcoin, so Bitcoin will keep rising, but because of that there are still like potential and cons to it, but we will really see how Bitcoin does. Some people are actually saying that Bitcoin is actually gonna rise and fall, so the fluctuation of Bitcoin is actually both good and bad. So Bitcoin will keep rising and sometimes it will fall, but it is just because of the market work. Sometimes it is on a bad day, sometimes it is on a good day. So Bitcoin will still having inflation, and we will see how it really does. So Bitcoin actually has a lot of potential, but you really need to do some research about it and just don't follow the herd and do the analysis. So think of Bitcoin as like a long-term investment, not like a short-term profit. Because if you actually do a long-term investment, you will actually reap more benefits. So the fluctuation of Bitcoin, you need to study it, so you will see a lot of like potential answer to that. So yeah, is Bitcoin going to rise? So that's a critical important information. Bitcoin will keep rising because of a lot of factors, such as the market, the people, investors, businesses, and the international. So these factors play a critical role, and I will say it is more about cryptocurrency. So cryptocurrency, even though it has been like since a couple of years, people learn about it. So it will be a big thing, just as the internet, but much more, because we're actually transitioning to like digital. That's a big thing. So it will keep rising because of this factor. So let's just keep watching and see how it does. It's keep being pushed by businesses and retail because they want to have an opportunities to make a lot of expense like money, because they have been like really being hard, like they have been really like hit really hard with the pandemic and inflation. So Bitcoin is actually for them to actually improve because of expensive, and it's actually really hard and tough to actually make businesses actually continue to do it because of this, because if you don't have people coming in, it actually impacts your income and finances. So Bitcoin provides a relief for them. So that is why businesses and retailers are pushing like for Bitcoin. It's actually earning very, but we must make sure we pay attention to Bitcoin miners earn income and make sure how the market is doing to see how it feels, because if we actually know for the long term how the market is gonna do, we can actually make sure that we invest in the right thing and diversify our income, diversify our stock in other things. It will actually be pretty good. And then Bitcoin miner, we must make sure we pay attention to them because they're actually the backbone, the infrastructure of Bitcoin. So they play a critical role. So we'll make sure that That's pretty much it. Just for this video actually in the description below, so if you want to share your opinion, comment down what you think, how you think Bitcoin will do like this quarter and this year. And thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.